The carbon tax, did you notice it was kind of it was a watershed week in a way, in the sense that the media, I think, started to drop off a little in interest. Tony Abbott actually held a picture opportunity and nobody turned up, or at least no cameras turned up, I think, for the first time, and Julia Gillard took a step to one side, though she explained it this way.
We're able to walk gum and, to chew and walk gum. There we are, chew gum and walk at the same time.
Oh, those sorts of slip-ups are most unfortunate. It's,
they are, yes.
Well, there's been a few of them. There's High Dudgeon and Hyperbole and the central tenant of the agreement.
Do you get the sense, though, that that she is trying to walk and chew gum at the same time at the moment, that whereas she's just chewing gum for a long time, that she's trying to do two things at once now, whereas the carbon tax up until this week was dominating everything?
I think there is that sense. I mean, I've looked over, her itinerary, and basically for 14 days straight, she hit the carbon tax absolutely hard. And over the past few days, she has interspersed, certainly, some events with carbon tax commentary, but she met Tony Blair, she did a cabinet meeting, she disappeared off the scene for a day. I think that the shift is in, I think.
But she should be more disappearing off the scene. And in fact, with this constant election cycle that we're in, and these photo opportunities, and she may have hit the hustings for 14 days, but is she actually talking to people?
It was pretty obvious she's doing this, and this is smart politics to sort of broaden the areas she's talking about and get herself out of the firing line. But why did they go down this path in the first place? I think, Barry, you wrote about this, I wrote about this, others have written about this much earlier, saying, why draw the focus onto yourself and your carbon tax every day? These are the things that are toxic. But
and I don't think it's just carbon. I think this idea that government has to be front and centre every day of the week, it doesn't make sense.
No.
And because she's out there on whatever issue, then Tony Abbott gets a run. If she just withdrew for a while and just governed from behind the scenes, it makes it tougher for Tony Abbott, who's winning.
It's interesting. There's some polling around, I was told, that was done by the Labor Party pre-Christmas, where the feedback from focus groups and so forth was they were sick and tired of politics and politicians, and there was an expectation there'd be a break over Christmas. But of course then we had the cyclones and the natural disasters. We had politicians in our face the whole period over Christmas, and it's all basically banked up to the point where they would rather they went away.
What did the polls tell us this week? That that at least there was a bottom to all of this, and now the government has just, it may not necessarily be dramatically improving its vote, but at least it looks as if they found the bottom, and it's not as low as they went in New South Wales.
Well, except the actual polling was within the margin of error, the movement. It was terribly slight. And also, it's just, the polling is so dominant. I've talked about this before, probably boring people silly, but I just find that we are, as Greg Combet said then, when you were talking to him, there's polls out every 2 or 3 days. And then they dominate the news cycle for about 24 hours. And then the government starts to panic, or various ministers start to panic about things, or the opposition gets artificially buoyed by it, and that frames the debate. It even frames policy making, and I think they're terribly destructive. And I think for the Australian, it's a fabulous marketing tool for them.
They do, though, have to be out there most days, sort of trying to counter some of the reporting. I mean, have a look at this one in the Daily Telegraph. It says workers struggling with a carbon tax are about to be hit with a second wave of Greens-inspired tax pain. Now, what's wrong with that sentence? Well, workers are not struggling with the carbon tax. It won't be for 12 months. About to be hit. They're talking there about a congestion tax, and of every level of government said there won't be one. And it wasn't Greens inspired. It was proposed by independents. But that's the kind of thing that you're up against, I guess, day to day.
But in fairness,
but why raise it? Why raise it in the context of the tax summit? I mean, and then have to shoot it down the next morning.
Well, that's right. It was blurred. The lines were blurred about it.
The strategy is just not there.
Well, again, why was it there? Because the independents, one of the independents insisted on putting it in there, even though it was shot down straight away by both Barry O'Farrell and Wayne.
It's an interesting question. I haven't even thought of this, but what is the government doing? What's on the government's agenda at the moment now that was part of their plan, that was Julia Gillard's plan?
Well, yesterday they announced disability changes, the disability pension.
Yeah, I think that's a
significant change.
I think that was a good policy reform. But why did that just come out now out of the blue? It looks like it's been ripped off the shelf.
Change the channel
to change the topic. I agree. It looks like a good policy reform.
Said, what is the government doing? So they come up with something and you say, but they're just pulling it out to change.
We should talk about. No, well, we should talk. That's right. We're talking about the tactics. But I mean, I think that's an area of solid reform they should be talking about a lot more. They perhaps should have done more of that at the budget during the budget cycle.
But
we'll see how this
the other
goes now.
problem that Julia Gillard faces, I think, too, with this tax summit or tax forum, which they've now downgraded it in importance to be, is that it's still talking about tax. It still raises the prospect of tax increases in the public's mind, and it fits Tony Abbott's carbon tax narrative.
But why shouldn't Australians be looking at, I mean, and the government did wimp it with the Henry Review, be looking at reform to the Australian economy, be looking at big picture.
But the truth is they're not.
No, that's what I'm saying. Why shouldn't they be? We should be.
Well, they should.
And this is the sort of business of government that
Well, what I'm
the
saying
carbon
is it
tax
feeds
is
into
completely...
Tony Abbott's fear campaign, and it's not going to be important anyway because Wayne Swan said the GST is not on the table, the mining tax is not on the table.
Congestion tax not
Not
on
on
the
the